afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Public Sector Debate Competition. I'm Aniki Clark, and I will be your host for this afternoon. So we've been having a very exciting day, some very close matches, and I have no doubt that this will be an equally close match, but it's our final match for today between Jamaica Customs Agency and the Statistical Institute of Jamaica. So we're in the quarterfinals, and the teams in the quarterfinals are Jamaica Customs Agency, Jamaica Information Service, Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Ministry of National Security, Statistical Institute of Jamaica, and the Victoria Jubilee Hospital, who just won their match, right? So we know who the semifinalists are, and from this match, the final semifinalists will be determined. A very warm welcome to those joining us via our social media platform. You are in for a treat, as the teams have promised an exciting match, no less than the three we've had since this morning. At this point, I will invite Team Proposition to introduce themselves, starting on my far right.
For Team STATIN.
Good day, everyone. My name is Dwayne Walker. I'm the second speaker for Team STATIN.
Good day, everyone. My name is Julian Barif. I am the first speaker for Team STATIN.
Thank you so much, Team STATIN. And now over to Team Customs, who will be opposing the Moots. Starting on my immediate... It's okay, Matthew. You can go ahead.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The name is Matthew Smith-Barrett, Jamaica Customs Agency.
My name is Sean Davis, Jamaica Customs Agency.
Kingsley Henry, Project Director, Contactless Clearance, Jamaica Customs.
Thank you.
Shameless plug.
Thank you very much, teams. And if you're wondering, what will they be debating this afternoon? The moot is, be it resolved that a national standard curriculum should be implemented at the early childhood level in Jamaica. And who will be judging this match? Our partners here from the Jamaican Association for Debating and Empowerment, JADE. Judges, please introduce yourselves.
Thank you very much, Aniki. Hello, everyone. My name is Jermaine Barrett, and I will be your chair adjudicator for this match.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Roshana Jarrett, and I'll be your wing judge for this match.
Good afternoon. I'm Ravon Thomas Matthews, and I'll be your second wing adjudicator.
Thank you very much, teams and judges. I will now hand over to Jermaine, who will guide you through this afternoon's debate. Good luck.
This house is called to order. Teams, we are ready for an exciting match. But before we get started, let us remind ourselves of the rules, specifically in relation to the speaking times and the time signals. The first speaker is allotted 8 minutes, the second speaker 7 minutes, the third speaker 5 minutes, and the reply speaker gets 3 minutes. The first and last minutes are protected, and you will know that you've spoken for 1 minute once you've heard the ding of the bell. Okay, do we have the bell? All right, we're getting the bell ready. And so very shortly you'll hear the bell dinged. All right. Once you hear we're having a little technical challenge with our bell. All right. Once you've gotten to the last minute of your speech, you'll hear another bell sound, and that signals that you have. You're right. There you go. And that signals that you have entered your last minute. Once you've spoken for the full allotted time, you will hear 2 dings of the bell. Right? And we know that you might hear that midway you're completing a sentence. So we allow 15 seconds grace period, or 15 seconds extra. And so at the end of that 15 seconds, you'll hear a continuous dinging of the bell. All right? At that point, you should really get off stage, get back to your seat, and make way for the next speaker. All right. The reply speakers note that there are no points of information allowed, and by the way, points of information are encouraged between the first and last minutes of the presentation. Do you have any questions, teams? No? Okay, good. Sounding exciting. Excited, rather. All right, so let's get started. We call upon the first speaker from the proposition side to open the debate. Hear, hear.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, distinguished judges, my worthy opponents, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, and those joining us online. Good day to you. All right, are you hearing me? Okay. As first speaker, I will be addressing the existing framework for early childhood development, who is responsible for the framework, indicators for the framework, and what it aims to achieve. I will then highlight why a national standard curriculum should be implemented. My astute second speaker will delve into the importance of continued assessment, universal metric, parent inclusion, and early detection of learning deficiencies through policy implementation, critical benefits to having standardized national curriculum. My third speaker will highlight a few of the major inhibitors to a standard being implemented and what methodologies can be posited to alleviate these challenges. I begin by defining three key terms that we have identified: national standard curriculum, and simply put, a state instrument used as a measure, norm, or model in comparative evaluations and refers to content and method that substantiate children's learning and development. It states what to teach and how to teach it. Secondly, should, obligation or duty. And thirdly, early childhood. The period from birth to age 8 years old, which constitute a remarkable period in brain development and represents a crucial window of opportunity for education. We all can agree that the first 1,000 days of a child's life are once in a lifetime. It's a once in a lifetime chance to shape his or her future. Why? Because the brain grows at a speed that is never repeated in life again. The Early Childhood Commission defends this principle. Established in 2003 under the Early Childhood Act, it regulates and coordinates all activities related to early childhood development in Jamaica. The ECC curriculum guide for early childhood development aims to promote a holistic approach to the development of children from age 5 years old. It focuses on the physical, cognitive, emotional, social, and also it emphasizes on play-based learning. This includes effective parenting education and support, effective preventative health care, early and effective screening, diagnosis, and intervention for at-risk children and household, safe, learner-centered, well-maintained facilities, and also effective curriculum delivery by trained practitioners. The ECC curriculum is a framework that has been successful in promoting early childhood development in Jamaica, but it has not been widely adopted as a standard. This has led to conflicting and contradicting objectives in early childhood provisions in Jamaica. For example, some early childhood centers may focus on academic achievement, while others may focus on social development. The absence of a clear standard focus can lead to confusion among parents and teachers about what is to be expected in early childhood education. One such conflict is the disparity between trained and untrained practitioners. According to a UNICEF and MOE report 2019, 70% of these institutions have untrained practitioners. This can result in inconsistencies in the scope of skill set children will hone at this stage of their lives. To address this issue, the framework needs to be adopted as the standard at a national level. Take, for example, our brother, St. Kitts and Nevis. As their early childhood policy, which sought to increase the number of trained staff, among other things, the National Strategic Plan for Early Childhood Development clearly states its intention to ensure that all early childhood practitioners are trained to help children develop and reach their full potential. Implementing a national curriculum will ensure that all institutions are working together towards the same objectives, thereby eliminating conflicting and contradicting objectives, which will make it easier for parents and teachers to understand what is expected. Furthermore, the expectation for early childhood provision needs to be harmonized to make the transition to primary school an easy one. In Jamaica, the traditional teaching style has been lecture-based, a didactic approach, which differs from the play-based learning style adopted in early childhood education. This can be a shock, no doubt, to children who are transitioning from early childhood to primary education. We are saying by harmonizing the teaching styles used, children will be better prepared for the transition to formal education. There should also be equity in the quality of what is taught in low and high income early childhood institutions. When teachers assess these students and realize the disparity in their development, they will have to bring them up to par. International studies have shown that deprived children, when they have the benefit of a good early childhood program, they achieve cognitive gains and are on par with their so-called better off peers. The quality of the curriculum offered is a major factor in determining development outcomes for children. This curriculum is designed to promote and support children's development in a broad range program types, which is considered, or for example, age-appropriate pedagogies. Not accepted at this time. Age-appropriate pedagogies, learning that is student-centered, evidence-based, and flexible in nature. A blended approach, event-based approach, and play-based approach. In conclusion, a national standard curriculum should be implemented at the early childhood level. The framework so far has been successful in promoting early childhood development in Jamaica, but it needs to be adopted by all early institutions. This will ensure that all institutions are working towards the same objective. Standardization will also ensure the expectation for early primary education and make it harmonized. By doing this, we can ensure that all children receive a high-quality education that prepares them for a successful future. I thank you.
Thank you very much for that speech. We now call upon the first speaker from the opposition side to furnish a case on behalf of their team. Hear, hear.
So, esteemed judges and my worthy opponents, and members in the audience live and online, good afternoon. Now, I find it instructive that I must first rebut that statement from the proposition's first speaker, that several of the policy aspects that she has made mention of, such as student assessment for learning deficiencies, are medical requirements and have nothing to do with a curriculum. The Early Childhood Commission itself acknowledges that a guide for early childhood education is needed, but not a standard curriculum, which curriculum as defined is a method and mode of teaching for assessment. Now, this is a very touchy topic. It is also an emotive one as it speaks to the heart of the inefficiencies and the needed dynamism of the Jamaican education system. It also speaks to the many failings and, yes, some of the successes as well of our education system, and how we have gone about educating our nation since 1970 onwards. Now, we from Team Opposition would like to categorically state that standardization is the antithesis to dynamism and flexibility. How dare you, Team Proposition? A national standard curriculum at the early childhood level will see not only the stifling of the mental creativity and expression of the children, but also make it more difficult for the teachers to develop and modify the method of delivery and style of teaching to accommodate the students' learning styles in these formative years.
Point of information.
Not accepted at this time. We as a nation have failed at this standardization in the primary education. We are failing at it in the secondary corrective education. But let's not stop there, says Team Proposition. Let us start the failing even earlier by instituting a standardized curriculum in the age where the brain of the human grows at the fastest rate never to be repeated over a life cycle. Let us trap the children and the trained educators into a standardized mode, trap them into a box of learning on the belief that it will somehow reap greater benefits, which no research has supported to be true. Now, we from Team Opposition are saying what we as a nation should be pushing for is not a national standardized curriculum at the early childhood level. What we should be pushing for are better trained and equipping of our early childhood educators, committing more finances and resources to those educators who will then be able to mold the minds of our most impressionable, who are absorbing everything around them like a sponge. How do you say to a child at that age, 0 to 3, 3 to 6, don't absorb this, but absorb that. Don't be fascinated by this, but instead be fascinated by that. Not accepted at this time. What we are saying to Team Proposition is that you're peddling in borderline madness. A national standard curriculum cannot be successful as the early childhood education hinges on too many dynamic factors, including the specific methods and approaches used, the personality and interests of the children, and the broader social and cultural context in which the children is developing and growing around. It is important for us in debating this topic, as educators and as parents, to be mindful of these factors and to take steps to foster the creativity in our children in a way that is both supportive and nurturing. And that cannot be achieved by a national standardized curriculum, as the curriculum needed to foster the development of our children at these formative ages and stages needs to be flexible to allow the educators to make the relevant changes to suit the environment of the children based on their location, background, and social settings. A national standard curriculum will require standardized training of our educators to deliver the curriculum. And that in of itself goes against the principle of the Early Childhood Commission in regards to the development of education. Early childhood educators are not trained in a manner to give standardized, one-size-fits-all educational delivery. What they are equipped with are professional standards of conduct, including the knowledge of child development, relationship with families, and creating developmentally appropriate learning environments. The key words here are developmentally appropriate, which we note means it has to be based on the expected environment that the child will be in. So what we are saying as Team Proposition is that instead of a national curriculum, according to the United Nations Children's Fund and our Early Childhood Commission, what we want and what we need for the support of the critical, healthy brain development of our children at these formative years are things like 2 years of free pre-primary education, which is of course government funded for all children at this stage. Better staffing and government financing of early childhood institutions, healthy interactions and relationships with the children, and a commitment to the provision of a sound and safe indoor and outdoor equipment, along with furnishing and supply of all early childhood education institutions' physical resource needs.
Point of information.
Accepted.
The NSP for early childhood institution outlines all of that you're saying. It does agree with you to say that it does need all of these things to facilitate early childhood development.
What we are saying is that before you get to a standardized curriculum, not an NSP, you need to first focus on creating and accepting that the environment in which our children across the island are developing is not the same, and as such goes against the principle of what a standard or standardized system would be promoting. Now, what we are asking for is things such as the sound provision of policy for standardized health and nutrition and those requirements for all of our children. What about normalized paid parental leave on the national level? Hence changing the Maternity Act and making it more welcoming, not just for government employees, but for all employees across the nation, before we get to looking at trying to formulate standardization. Team opposition is saying that what team proposition needs to look at is the fact that the learning environment across the island varies so significantly that if you put in a standard, you are setting up our children from the early age to fail and be seen as failures when they matriculate into primary education. It's a simple adage. You are going to be creating a system where you are going to be saying to them, because it is standardized, you must then test them to see if they meet those requirements. And what those requirements are. You have, and I'm not insulting our children now, but you're basically saying you have the monkey, you have the bird, you have the elephant, and you have the seal. And the test that you're going to be testing them on is who can climb the tree the fastest. Because that's what a standard curriculum would be requiring. You are setting up our children in the rural areas, some suburban areas, some urban areas, uptown and downtown, to compete against each other in a standardized format that will clearly only benefit one group over the other. I am saying to team proposition, do not come with a standardized curriculum trying to set up our children for failure or to be seen as failures so early in their lives and then expect that corrective action subsequent will somehow manifest itself. Now, my team members from team opposition will continue to highlight how unworkable such a policy proposal is as we explore issues such as the resource needs of the early childhood institutions, how much financing from the national budget actually goes to early childhood institutions, such as only 1.5% of the education budget. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
We thank you for that speech. We now invite the second speaker from the proposition team to respond. Hear, hear.
Firstly, my opponents, I am questioning whether or not you've actually read the curriculum, because there is no trap present in the teaching style. Educating our teachers will allow for dynamism in how they deliver their content. It guides what they're supposed to achieve at the end of different age levels. Speakers, adjudicators, teammates, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, greetings. I am in strong support of the implementation of a national standard curriculum at the early childhood level. In Jamaica, this curriculum will provide a basis for continued assessment that will benefit our children and, by extension, our nation in the long and short term. The 5-year national strategic plan presented by the Early Childhood Commission demonstrates how continuous monitoring will lead to great benefits, and not just at the early childhood transition into primary level, but overall development. As second speaker, I am tasked with illustrating what forms of assessment currently exist and that it should be standardized. Demonstrating the importance of establishing a universal metric in assessment, and finally examining the potential of the standard to improve early detection of potential learning disabilities. Currently in place to assess the standard are the Jamaica School Readiness Assessment, JSR, and the Grade 1 Learning Indicator Profile. The JSR was designed to screen 4-year-old children for development delays and readiness for the primary level in order to determine whether additional development evaluation is necessary, and to assist the curriculum in planning for
Point of information.
Not accepted at this time. Support children's readiness for primary school. Furthermore, in the event where children are, for some reason, they may fail to perform adequately at this age, there exist referral processes where they can be put through diagnostic testing to identify where the disconnect in their understanding/interpretation may lie. The GOLIP is used, that is G-O-L-I-P, is used to audit students' social, cognitive, and interpersonal skills within the learning environment. It assists teachers in identifying the specific needs of each child, entering grade 1. These assessments, paired with a state-of-the-art scientifically sound curriculum, is tailored to help children reach their full potential. With a structured approach to learning, under the current curriculum, we do not believe that it is wise that this should be an option for institutions to refuse, especially considering that Jamaica, through the curriculum, the current curriculum framework, is considered to be one of the most structured early childhood education curriculum in the Caribbean. This is one of our firm premises that validates the need for standardization.
Point of information.
Accepted.
Is the proposition saying that the non-standardized play-based model used in developed countries with higher educational outcomes at the early childhood level, such as Finland, is flawed?
No, we are saying, in fact, their method is standardized and it's not flawed. It is used. The curriculum details learning outcomes for young children. They are drawn from extensive review of local, regional, and international curricula, as well as the learning outcomes for the early childhood development across the Caribbean. 6 parameters, this includes the wellness of the early childhood individuals, effective communication, valuing culture, intellectual empowerment, respect for self, others, the environment, resilience. Each learning outcome is supported by a set of development goals or learning tasks to be achieved by that child. The aim of the curriculum is to provide learning activities that will enable each child to attain these outcomes. Secondly, a standardized early childhood curriculum, my apologies there, would create a universal metric with which to assess children. It is important to note that children at this level already are subjected to forms of assessment, as I just elaborated, some of which are informal, other aspects of it are formal. This occurs, and these individuals are tested irrespective of where they are in their development as long as they reach that stage. Note, however, that this assessment should be done in line with the expected outcomes from this curriculum. Findings from these tests show that children with greater access to adequate resources perform better than those with limited access. This gap was initially considered to be wide. However, in April of this year, the MOE indicated that the government is ramping up measures to close this gap. But with not accepted at this time, with a broader aim of standardizing all resources. Ladies and gentlemen, this highlights the importance for establishing a uniform metric of evaluating through the current curriculum. The main idea is if all children in a specific age cohort are subjected to the same method of testing and evaluated the same way, they should receive similar levels of stimulation, both mentally and cognitively. Motor skills dependent. To tie this to a point made by my first speaker, standardization will allow for a more extensive teacher training, ensuring that all teachers have the necessary skills and knowledge to support their students effectively. When children are equipped with the tools they need to teach a standardized curriculum consisting of a universal metric, well-trained teachers will be able to guide students to the desired learning outcome as mentioned.
Point of information.
Not accepted at this time. Finally, implementing a national standard curriculum will create the opportunity for early detection and treatment of cognitive and learning deficiencies. With a standardized curriculum, teachers will be able to identify areas where children may be struggling early on in their studies and provide the necessary support to address these issues. Early detection and treatment are critical for ensuring that children can achieve their full potential, and we believe that this can be effective if a standardized curriculum is implemented and maintained. In conclusion, a national standard curriculum at the early childhood level is essential for continued assessment and development of our children. The points that myself and my first speaker would have discussed would underscore this. It is essential that we invest in our children at this early stage to provide them with a structured, developmentally appropriate learning experience that sets a foundation for their future success. I urge you to support the proposition in our stance that promotes a betterment of Jamaica's future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that speech. We now call upon the second speaker from Team Opposition to respond and to advance the case on their side of the house. Hear, hear.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hear the opposition, the proposition, saying that we should hop on their train and support it. That will never happen. Finland model is not standardized, so let's just make that clear. And NSP, see the plan here? This is not a curriculum, this is a plan, a little roadmap that tells us where we want to take the sector, the early childhood education sector. And so if you think we haven't read it, you should test it again. Standardization, what we hear you advancing for, does not appear as a potential outcome of this plan. The ECC, with the technocrats, have not seen it that way, and across the world, when we examine the data, it doesn't look that way. Standardization is not a magic bullet. So the things that you have acknowledged that are not working, you are saying that if we standardize what good you see in the curriculum that is being promoted now will be the fix when they turn it into a curriculum? Not gonna happen. Let me remind you that early childhood education focuses on imparting knowledge to children aged up to about 6 and 8 years. The NSP speaks to 0 to 8 years, but it also speaks to the transitional year into primary level education at age 6. So let's understand that fact. Children undergo early educational development before they attain that age of compulsory education. In other words, early childhood education is not even compulsory in Jamaica. So I'm not sure how we're going to proceed now to advance the argument of making a standardized curriculum to treat with just those who choose to send their children into that space. Yes, cognitive development is greatly influenced by early childhood education, according to psychologist Berger, and forms the basis upon which children think logically, interact, process, store, and use information. Early childhood education supports their cognitive development by ensuring that children interact with family members and teachers daily. Psychologists also regard that at the early childhood level, at this level of the spectrum, this type of education forms the basis of cognitive development by providing toys and other play materials that stimulate the senses of children, and that these are important to building their reasoning abilities and making them children of logic. This level of education ought to be approached in a more holistic nature. And the Head Start program, which we see in some parts of the US, comes to mind. It basically provides this holistic environment, early childhood environment, that emphasizes the incorporation of nutrition, health, and parent participation during the early learning of children, and aims at fostering stable relationships, which result in improved children's well-being. In addition, the program improves the cognitive skills in our children. What team proposition has in mind makes them come here today to tell us that to achieve these essentials of early development in our children, it requires us to have a NSC, a National Standard Curriculum. I don't see how you have made that case. There are some things that we strongly believe must first be normalized before we move towards standardizing a curriculum which we think is a magic bullet. Those of us who have an appreciation of teaching and learning process in the context of the global space and our local Jamaican reality will know that there is a place for flexibility and dynamism in learning, particularly at this very early stage of development in our children. All children are different, and they grow and advance at different levels. So a one-size-fits-all curriculum will not work. In Jamaica, it's not gonna work. May I suggest to you that technically sound critics argue that a standardized curriculum does not allow teachers to adapt to the specific needs and interests of the individual children that come into those classrooms, those schoolrooms each day. They argue that the children have different learning styles and learning interests, and NSC will not wake them up and make them the children that we want. It will not create the toddlers that we want to be the leaders in our future. Jamaica. NSC won't help us to address the psychological development deficits in our children that we examine in our small schools, those basic schools, infant schools, early childhood institutions that we see 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds coming and fighting. Standardization won't work in those spaces. Standardization won't work in the rural hills of Davis Bank. Standardization won't work in Moko and Clarendon. Standardization won't work in those spaces where internet is dancing. If you try it in Kingston, maybe you want to advance the case, but even so, there is diversity. It never work. Teachers and parents you propose an argument that the parents will become confused as to what to do. Nowadays, parents choose which school they send which of the picnic them. Everybody not go the same basic school or the same early childhood institution because of the different abilities that they are born with. And we encourage people to do the testing regardless of the education system so that they can go and know who their child is, what support the child will require, and how they're going to provide that space. To enable them to embrace the cultural realities and the cultural diversity in our one society. That we will move to help parents to understand that we're not proposing that they just go to book, but that the children need a little difference in learning. And every child can learn and every child must learn, but everybody won't learn the same way. You look at the Abeka model and the Montessori models of learning, where there is a focus on certain key priorities in the children's life, and parents who can afford it send their children there because that's what they can afford and desire for them. Let us look at all those models and see how best we can integrate a multiplicity of these models and put them to work. Not that school mustn't just be about books and trips, which sometimes the curriculum may advance. Transition from various levels in our education sector seems to be a free-for-all. So you go to common entrance, GSAT, PEP, you just PEP into high school. Although you can't read, you get a placement. And they force you there to learn the same standard curriculum and you leave fully done. That not keep. It cannot keep. Home care learning is also a thing. What are you going to do about that when we standardize it? There's so many deficiencies in our education system, and you're coming here to tell me today that NSC is going to fix the problem. That will never happen. There are many parents who are participating in this red shirting approach where they delay the implementation of children going into schools at that level so that they can develop them more at home to make the children that we want to see. People want resources. People are not clamoring for NSC. People are clamoring for resources to pay the teachers, for trained teachers. They're clamoring for better early childhood institutions, and the MOEY and must engage STATIN to collect the real data and lead us in the right direction. Arrest.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that speech. We'll have to talk to you about paying for that free advertisement afterwards, all right? Promoting STATIN. Indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, we now call upon the third speaker from the proposition side to present their case. Hear, hear.
As it stands, the ground is not level in the early childhood sector. What we are proposing is an equalization, an equitization. Yes, not everybody learns the same, and not everybody has access to the same resources, but with standardization comes access to these resources, and I will tell you how. And what now keep is your incessant failure to acknowledge the flexibility of the curriculum. What you fail to acknowledge is that teachers are actually encouraged to modify the curriculum to suit their standards, the standards in the curriculum, while still meeting the objectives, because who best to know how the students learn rather than the teachers who are right there with them, but I digress. The first speaker, I want to thank you for agreeing that we need more money, because that's exactly what I'm here to speak about, to show you how standardizing this will give us more money to the sector, the money that we so desperately need. Ladies and gentlemen, it cannot be stressed enough how important the implementation of a national standard curriculum at the early childhood level is in Jamaica. My first speaker ably demonstrated how the current curriculum identifies learning outcomes.
Point of information.
Let me finish, please. My second speaker explained that effective curriculums provides teachers and other stakeholders with a measurable plan and structure for delivering quality education. And I want to speak to the financial benefit to the implementation of a standardized curriculum at the early childhood level. The ECC assessed several early childhood institutions, and it was revealed that 44% of these institutions fell below the mid-range standards of the ECC and need significant support from stakeholders. And a big part of this support is financial. Let's look at the 2020 financial year. Despite a roughly 14% allocation, accepted?
Are you saying that adopting an NSC will cause the government and other stakeholders to increase the paltry spending of 1.5% on early childhood education?
But
are you guaranteeing that a new curriculum standard will cause the government to find money where it doesn't currently?
I dare to say so, because we can reallocate funds. We have, from the World Bank, a public expenditure review that suggests that $3.7 billion could be reallocated from tertiary education budget to the ECD to improve learning outcomes for young children. This fiscal year, we see an increase in the overall budget for education, increasing to $142.9 billion. And of that, we have $7 billion set aside for early childhood education. That's an over 100% increase from the 3.1% in the 2020 financial year. And so what this demonstrates to me is that the government is recognizing the importance of investing in early childhood development. But let me paint the picture for you. James Heckman, Nobel Prize winning economist, shows that for every US dollar invested in quality early childhood programs, you can get a return of up to US $16. So with this approximate $7 billion investment, we can anticipate a nearly $112 billion return. Not accepted at this time. What we must do and what will happen with standardization is that we must get the government to increase the funding for ECD so that we can have all of these early childhood institutions coming up to the same level, or the level where they can afford to get resources for these children to have access to, modify the learning centers that they are in so that we can increase ensure quality early childhood education.
Point of information.
Not accepted at this time. I urge you to support the implementation of a national standard curriculum at the early childhood level in Jamaica, because this policy will prioritize early childhood development as a primordial factor in nation building. It will create a basis for continual assessment of students, thereby increasing the chances of detecting and treating cognitive learning abilities, and provide schools with the resources and funding they need to provide quality education to our children. In this way, all schools are held to the same high standards, giving every child access to the best possible start in life. Lack of money should not be an issue, and that's why reallocation can happen. No issue should be greater than that of a child's development. And for this reason, let us work together to standardize this curriculum for the sake of Jamaica's littlest learners. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that speech. We now call upon the third speaker from Team Opposition to conclude the case on behalf of their side, at least the substantive case. Hear, hear.
It seems like the proposition, like as Master Griffith said, they are in dreamland, because they want us to sip the Kool-Aid and believe today that introduction of our NSC is a magic bullet, and all of a sudden the government is going to find additional resources. So let me just tell you everything that the third speaker said, which was patently false. So the government of Jamaica, yes, has allotted $7 billion for pre-primary education. But what you don't know, and probably you should know because you're from STATIN, so research is your thing. So $3.3 billion out of that goes to the administration of the Early Childhood Commission. 47% goes just to the administration of the Early Childhood Commission, and not into the substantive teaching and learning and the facilities for early childhood institutions across Jamaica. So let us just clear that up, right? So we are here clamoring for a national standard curriculum. Yeah, the proposition is doing that. But I don't hear parents across Jamaica. I don't hear early childhood practitioners. I don't see people out there saying, give us NSC, give us NSC, give us NSC. People are clamoring for other changes that the return on investment in early childhood education will be greater. And I like how on kind of slide away, you know, kind of say, oh, we have a problem with untrained educators, but NSC is going to fix it. The research has shown that only 20% of early childhood practitioners are trained. Tell me how NSC is going to fix that. Let us focus our resources as a nation on ensuring that our children at that level are being taught by graduate trained early childhood practitioners. Let us spend our resources like that, and maybe in 15 years we can come back and talk about our NSC. But right now NSC is not happening, all right? So we talk about teacher remuneration. When you have a situation where the majority of early childhood institutions are private-based, because out of the over 2,400 ECIs in Jamaica, the government only controls about 400 of them. It means that the others are community-based and privately owned. Did you know that privately owned institutions, some of those church institutions, the teachers don't even get a proper salary? They get a stipend. And the government subvention per teacher for those institutions would on average be 800,000. Why don't we get qualified teachers and pay them money and motivate them so that they can impact the system with the existing guide that the ECC has? We have a guideline. What is this rush to move to a national standard curriculum? Let us take on another issue. Early childhood education is not mandatory in Jamaica. It is not. The ECC own figures reveal that only about 87% of children at the early childhood level are accessing formal education. Let us fix that. Let us as a people make pre-primary education mandatory and ensure that all children in Jamaica at that age can benefit from a formal education. That is what we need to focus our energy on. Let us fix that. Let us standardize that. And away with this issue and this idea about standardizing an NSC. Let me tell you something else. You see, we have a lot of these institutions across Jamaica. We talk about early childhood institutions, sitting down on church pews. Have you ever tried sitting on one of those hard church benches that we have our little children sitting on day in, day out trying to learn? Let us invest in facilities that children can be stimulated. Let us give them outdoor play area. Let us give them tools and play-doh and all the things that they need. Let's not make a mistake about it, you know. There are institutions in Jamaica that are passing with flying colors. A lot of them are associated with prep schools. But they have found the formula that works. So you want to standardize something? Let us not standardize failure, right? Let us standardize success. How about we take all of the nice things that the prep schools are doing and spend the resources and build classroom where the student-teacher ratio is like 10 to 1. How about let us spend resources and provide the early childhood teachers with teacher's aid, 1 or 2 per child? How about we do those things and then we'll come back in 15 years and talk about a national standard curriculum? The practitioners that are trained within the early childhood system don't need no standard curriculum. They are the experts. They can assess the learning needs. They can use the guide. You don't need to teach a child at that age rote. You need to teach that child how to appreciate the environment, how to critically think on their own, how to assess their environment, and how to adapt. We don't need them in a straitjacket, right? So let us fix that. Let us standardize that. And I'll end on this point. Nobody not clamoring for that except the proposition. And you said it in your previous debate. That guess what, you believe in democracy and you support where when people call for change, that's what you want. Nobody not calling for that change. So let us bench that. No NSC about here. Fix everything else.
All right, thank you very much for that contribution to what is an exciting debate. We're going to pause for 1 minute to allow the fine-tuning of the reply speeches. And when we resume, we will hear the reply speeches, beginning with that from the opposition, followed by that from the proposition. Your 1 minute begins now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, your 1 minute has elapsed. It's now time for us to hear the reply speech from the opposition. Let's make that speaker welcome.
Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. Now, our opponents continue to berate the meaning of standardized and, of course, the word curriculum. And I'm almost certain I heard team proposition saying that equalization in the curriculum can come if our students are not learning in the same environment. And I find that strange because that sounds oxymoronic. To that we say, you can't have a standard curriculum of the learning environments in these formative years where 90% of our learning that takes place is what is informed by the environment and absorbed by their spongy brains. A national standardized curriculum does not fix the under-resourcing issue. It does not address the teacher shortage issue, and it does not address the needed parental support at the early childhood level. The children with the best outcomes are actually those who are learning in ECIs that do not adopt a standardized model, but have instead chosen to adopt those flexible models that allow the teachers to adapt to the surroundings and the environment to adequately inform and educate the young minds. Now, we know this line of argument will sound familiar to team proposition, and so we must ask it. Team proposition, who is clamoring for a national standardized curriculum? We don't hear the teachers asking for it. We, the parents, are not asking for it, and certainly not the children. What we do hear them asking for is that focus be placed on the conditions that the children are forced to learn in. The under-resourcing of our early childhood institutions, the lack of proper sanitary and other hygienic conveniences. What they are asking for are more teachers in the classrooms and better teacher-to-student ratios across all facilities to include more early childhood education institutions being built and spread evenly across the length and breadth of Jamaica. So why not standardize that? Now, if we put it to a vote, and yes, team proposition, we remember that you are all for democracy based on your last debates about tattoos. We from team opposition are confident that those vested parties would not be voting yea for a national standard curriculum, but they'll be voting for more resources to be allocated to early childhood institutions to allow the employment of more skilled educators for more Play-Doh, more swings, more sandboxes, and more nutritional provisions for healthy brain development. They would not be voting in favor of the proposed system of stigmatization that your standard curriculum would bring. Now, interestingly, what we have heard all throughout this debate from team proposition is that all that is needed is better resourcing. But they've not spoken to what this standard curriculum will look like, feel like, and be envisioned. And we support you there. Because the spend is what we think on the resources will give us the results that the nation needs. Our children learn, especially in these formative years, from the places that are not standardized, such as our churches, the village, our communities. All places where just as much, if not more, learning takes place. And none of these places are standardized. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you very much, Reply Speaker. Replying on behalf of Team Jamaica Customs, Opposition. And now to conclude the debate, we invite the Reply Speaker representing Team STATIN, Proposition. Hear, hear.
Ladies and gentlemen, my worthy opponents, I thank you for your impassioned debate. However, I would like to clarify a few things for you. The very eloquent way in which you spoke of the Head Start program in the United States. I hope you would have read a report by the NAEY that stated that early childhood care in the United States is fragmented. You should have read wide. I would like to also state to you that the St. Kitts and Nevis, they were in the same situation that we are at present and are debating. They did include and put together standardization, and they saw an outcome. Matter of fact, it said since 2008, teachers in all government and private schools have undergone high scope training, etc. I would like to also tell you that we do have a model from which we can benefit from here in Jamaica. The Evelyn Mitchell success story in Top Hill, Clarendon. It is obvious that you and us have somehow managed to not be on the same plane in terms of standardization. We are not speaking about a straight-jacketed situation. What we are saying is, for all of the things that exist, the gaps, with all of the stakeholders who happen to be in the National Strategic Plan, parents, children, and other stakeholders, we're saying, let us get on the same page. I would like to state to you that we have to start somewhere. And that somewhere starts with what has been outlined, because in our Vision 2030, for this to be achieved as a reality, it does include in Goal 1 and 2 outcome that we are to start with early childhood. That's where we start. And so we're saying to you, whilst you have said all of that, members of the audience, my esteemed judges, we are saying that it has to start somewhere to bring it together. And standardization is what we're saying will allow that to happen. I thank you.
We thank you so very much for a very spirited and impassioned debate. We now turn over to our host and moderator, who will take us to the break.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you will agree with me that school was in session, right? It's now recess time. We'll find out who is the teacher and who is the student. Thank you very much for your attention. We'll be back in a few minutes while the judges deliberate.
my life. Here today for
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So we've just witnessed a debate between STATIN on proposition and Jamaica Customs on opposition, contesting the idea as to whether we should institute a national standards curriculum at the early childhood education level. Now, the arguments were robust on both sides, interesting, exchange of ideas and contestation, but in the end, only one team will advance to the semifinals from this round. But before we get there, let's give both teams a round of applause. Now, STATIN opens the case by telling us a number of things. One, they tell us that there are some deficiencies in the system, evidenced by the fact that the Early Childhood Commission's assessment saw 40% of institutions at that level failing that metric of assessment. They spoke to the fact that there's a lack of standardization, not just in terms of the curriculum, but also standardization in terms of the quality of teachers that exist, the quality of resources that exist, and also the level of funding relative to other sectors of the educational system. Of course, Jamaica Customs on opposition sort of also agrees in principle with a lot of these deficits that STATIN would have pointed to. And both teams throughout the debate were seeking to gain ground on a mechanism or mechanisms that would alleviate these pressures and these challenges. Both teams wanted to provide greater resources and greater capacities, training and so forth within the system. Yes? Now, recognizing that, we also were left to wonder which team has it within their jurisdiction, if you will, to claim that they solve best at that point in time that it is most opportune to absorb information, yes? And so what should be the model to be employed at this stage? Should we take an approach that's didactic, or should we take one where it's fun and games and exploring the world and exploring the environment? Importantly and interestingly, Jamaica Customs tells us that we really should be a lot more lax and a lot less rigid with respect to the kinds of teaching strategies that are employed at early childhood education. And they also tell us that to adopt a national standards curriculum will sort of lock us into a fixed approach that does not allow for flexibilities. Now, why is flexibility important for the opposition here? It's important because they contend that within the society, there are several kind of socio-economic challenges that exist that prohibit the application of standardization across the board. So they'll say, for example, that in rural Jamaica, the standard might not work. It might work better in Kingston. Now, I want to go back to the question that I opened with, which is, well, the resource deficits that exist, that both teams seem to agree are problematic. Which team is best suited to solve those? In the final analysis, ladies and gentlemen, we felt that the team in proposition because they were challenged to defend a national standards curriculum, we were not able to see how, in their world, simply advocating for a standards curriculum solves for a lot of the deficits that they claim they would solve for. So they say that they would provide greater funding. We don't know how it is that greater funding comes out automatically from the imposition or the adoption of a national standards curriculum. We don't know how, for example, how we will achieve a world within which there is greater resource in the system at the early childhood education. And so we're more likely to buy into the world of team opposition that gives us greater resources and greater benefits in that regard, in those respects. And we saw it then as a kind of counter proposition that was rightly placed in the on-side opposition. And so that said, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude as a panel unanimously that the team that won this debate is a team from opposition, Jamaica Custom. And so, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations to Jamaica Customs once again. And well tried, the team that unfortunately your journey ends here, but you've done very well, both in this match and up until this point. The team from STATIN. And the final result that I will deliver in this quarterfinal round, the best debater, the best speaker. The best speaker for this match comes to us as well from the winning team. And that speaker is the first opposition speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a word for you from the panel of adjudicators. It was our pleasure to judge the semi-final matches and all the matches up to this point, but especially the 4 matches judged today. They were extraordinarily well debated, exceptionally well presented and defended on both sides in every single case. And we're very, very delighted that we've seen tremendous growth and development. Clearly, the Transformation Implementation Unit is doing a good job. At this time, yeah, give them a round of applause. So at this time, I turn over to our moderator. Thank you. At this time, I turn over to our moderator and host, who will take us to the close.
It does belong to the team.
And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You've been an awesome audience. Join us next week, next Thursday, in fact, at 10 o'clock when we kick off the semifinals. So all the winners from today, next Thursday, all the winners from today advance to the semifinals, you have 1 week to prepare. But you're now very accustomed and seasoned debaters, so you don't need that much time to prepare for the semifinals.
We could have it tomorrow.
Of course. And thank you very much to those who joined us online. We saw some awesome debates today, as Jermaine alluded to earlier. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Bye for now.